Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Tanya.
Welcome to
Welcome
the
to the
Purple
Purple
Ship.
Ship.
And this is where we talk about the remarkable process of trading.
And we meet people who ship remarkable things. And today we welcome Louise Karch. Louise is an award-winning author, master trainer, and beloved speaker. And her most recent book, First Aid for Fairies, From Rain to Rainbows, was nominated for the Michael L. Prins Award. Now, this award is given by the Young Adult Library Services Association, and it recognizes the best books written for teenagers, highlighting literary excellence in young adult literature. Louise, it's a joy to have you with us today. Oh,
It's
and
wonderful to
welcome to
be
the
here
Purple
with my
Ship.
writing family. Oh, well, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. We're so curious about your book, First Aid for Fairies From Rain to Rainbows. Tell us about your book.
It is a unique guide. It is a quick read and it gives teenagers and emerging adults proven tips backed by science and my background as a trauma counselor so they can help their friends. It's a help others book. And so you can see it's thin. So for people who are stressed out, they don't feel like they can handle very much. But we know that if you read for just a couple of minutes, you actually calm down. So it's got beautiful illustrations. And then those are David Bowie's boots. And then just little tips like retreat, there's a feelings wheel. So it's got these little tips so they can go from stress and chaos to calm.
Well, I'm curious on what was the story behind the story? What led you to do this book?
I am a Canadian who relocated to Australia, and one of the first things I did is join a choir. And I joined just after a young woman named Naomi had suicided, and she was a present absence in the choir, and something about her just stuck to my heart. And many are called, but few are answered. So I felt called to write a Help Others book. And I woke up one morning with the voice of the fairy godmother. I had been a fairy godmother and raised lots of money as a fairy godmother on various community projects. But I came up with the voice of the book. I grabbed my phone and I recorded it. That was in 2015. Now, the book went live last year, so it took a while for me to find the right illustrator, Felice Delegata, who I met during the Carbon Almanac with Seth Godin and you, Amanda, and others. So it just needed the right person to help bring the book to life. I've since met Naomi's sister, Melissa, and she's deeply moved that this book was inspired by her sister. I created it in conjunction with Williamstown High School. Once I wrote it, I gave it to them to find out whether the steampunk vibe, because I was hoping the steampunk vibe would appeal to young audiences, and it does. And I also wanted to make sure that the voice and the tips were something that they uh, appreciated. And then when it was nominated for the Michael Prince Award, I just about, I don't know, like, well, I was amazed. So it's being very well received, particularly in the neurodivergent community and with people who are really facing adversity. They find it quite comforting. So that's just wonderful.
It's a powerful story, Louise.
Mhm.
Such a special book. What's the change that you want to make in the world with that book? You know, we always ask that.
Well, Seth teaches us to ask three questions. Who's it for, what's it for, and what's the change? And so the change is I noticed when I did the Carbon Almanac, and that was a project with 300 creatives from 31 countries. We produced that book in 6 months. Is when I was talking about that book and when I had experienced, the floods, the major floods, and seen the fires, those hit me hard. And young people are really stressed by what they're seeing in their world, wars and devastation and species loss. So that motivated me to give them more tools so they could help each other and go from sort of helplessness to hope. Les Brown says, when we've got hope in the future, we've got power in the present. So the change is to give them power in the present by using things like the physiological sigh, where you breathe in twice through your nose, really fill up the lungs, and a long exhale. And you do that repeatedly until you feel better. You enter the parasympathetic, the calmer state. Think parachute gliding down. So if these young people have more tools, they're the ones that have to respond to all the challenges that different generations have led them. And I want them to have the tools so they can help each other and they can help build the world that they deserve.
Yeah, thanks, Louise.
I really love that. And I think this book is, so well received, and not just, because you're located in Australia. It's like a worldwide. You have so many people talking about this book. Can you share a few of the readers, they have reviewed your book, and what did they say about it? I know they all have very various background. So I believe people would love to know about that.
Well, the reviews, if you go into Amazon or Goodreads, are there. And at this point, they're all 5-star reviews, which is pretty fun. Basically, they find it beautiful and they find it helpful. I have had physicians say that it's an incredible resource for stressed out teens. Dr. Dervla Holmes at Westgate Health, a health co-op where I go, I gave her a bunch of them to give out, and the teens have really appreciated it. So it's with the help of people who are listening, if you can share it with anybody who needs it, if you can ask your library to buy it as a resource, and I'm speaking where I can, it's a gift. It's a gift book. I wrote it for my 60th birthday as a legacy. That sounds a bit wankerish, which is a word, an expression in Australia. Like it sounds a bit braggy, but I just knew in my heart that I had to do this book, particularly as a landmark birthday.
This is a very interesting because at the same time, there are a lot of self-help books, and then tell kids to be resilient and things like that, books like that. But why this book? Why is it different from other books, readers can find? Why this is so important for like teenagers or, young adults?
It's different because it's the only book in the world that combines a help others book with a steampunk vibe. It's also written in, for the most part, iambic pentameter, which is the same language style that Shakespeare used. So that's 10 beats per line. And the rhyming and the beat were taught as children how to read often through rhyme. And so it goes very deep into the psyche. And we know from First Nations culture, particularly North American, which is where I'm from, Turtle Island, North America, Canada, United States, is the drum beat is the sound of a child in the womb. So that beat is comforting. So the mix of trauma-based tools that counselors and psychiatrists and psychologists know, but aren't always out in the mainstream. Steampunk and rhyme, I think that's what makes it truly unique. I mean, some of those lines, I mean, took me hours and hours and hours to write. So it really, really was a labor of love.
Talking about the process, it's not easy. When we read this book, it's so smooth, it's so beautiful, but just like you said, it can take hours, maybe just for a few lines. And actually, as a matter of fact, if you feel like the readers, you should have a kind of like have a feeling of this book. I wonder if you're interested in reading just maybe a little passage for us to let the people experience the beauty from the author, Louise herself.
Sure, I will read. Let's see.
Well, as you can tell, I have the book right here.
I know. I'm just looking to see
Yeah.
what would be. Well, this is from W. So it's written in rainbow, Rainbows. So each tip goes with a rainbow because the tagline from rain to rainbow. So I want people to feel like they can go from where they are to someplace better.
Mhm.
So I will read from Wonder Out Loud. So if somebody's feeling lousy, it's okay to wonder like what's going on.
Mm.
And then there's a section on how to listen deep so friends will speak. And there's two little fairies here. And one of them's an amputee. So they've got a mechanical leg. So the fairies are different shapes and races, and they're just magical.
Beautiful.
So in a time when so many feel unheard, a simple gift is saying fewer words. A friend's true inner voice is often shy. Start dishing out advice and it'll fly. Shift to deep listening and reflection, and you will hear what's inside that beckons. Try to find a place without distractions. Consider turning off phones and gadgets. Move closer so it's clear you are listening. Being heard is love for human beings. So that's just a little section. Most of the tips are quite short, like aquatherapy with this gorgeous
Yeah,
Look at
illustration.
the
my
illustration.
favorite page.
Yeah. Wow. Look at that.
That one starts with which looks happier, a prune or a plum? Plum. Your brain's mostly water, so go grab some. Take a jug and a big glass down from the shelf. Fill with water to replenish yourself. So, I go on to say that stress dehydrates you. And so sometimes you just need to remind a young person, well, in a loving way, let's have a glass of water, you and I. Let's toast to, getting out of bed today. Let's toast to you coming downstairs and talking with me right now. So yeah, there's just little tips said in a loving voice because I want young people to start to cultivate that loving voice inside.
Right. Well, Tanya also, we were teenagers before. We didn't have this book, and then we all have our own teenagers at home. And Tanya, how about you? What do you feel about this book? Because we both read this book, and then I think we need to, give more insights from the reader's perspective. Yeah, since the author is here.
Well, I think, especially when you said, how have you had some water? I think there's so many, what I experienced with my own daughter, who's 17. They're so busy and they think, oh, yeah, I need to sleep. I'll go to bed at 11 and get up at 6. That's enough time. They underestimate what they need because they don't have the experience. And and I think these are great. These are, like you said, gentle reminders, and it's in a unique way. It's not a lecture because nobody wants that.
You
So
can't tell anybody what to do.
exactly, I think that's what's great about it. Well, and I'm curious too, in your process of getting this out into the world, what are some of the key things that you've learned that you would want to share with others who are shipping their own projects?
Mark Twain said the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you figure out why. If you choose to be a creative, then choose to be a creative. And what that means is coming up with practices that give you the structure and the systems to overcome fear and resistance. So, for example, Amanda and Tanya, we've been meeting once a week as writers for almost 3 years more. And that weekly accountability keeps me moving. I write every day, even if it's just a sentence. And even if I'm not working on a particular book, I write every day so that I create a story bank and I'm used to capturing elements of a story. I usually try and release something every birthday, which is for me February 25th. This year, I'm not doing that because I had a couple of challenges this year, but I will still do something this year. And I've got a project that I have shipped some things for, but not in the public domain because we're just trying to get buy-in on this idea at this point. Um, don't do it alone. Um, your dream will be killed in isolation because isolation is a dream killer, but it's community that will lift you up and support you and help you ride the dragon, not let the dragon ride you.
Well, tell us more about the dragon. Do we all have a dragon? Are you talking about the
Yes.
existence? And how do we tell?
Yes, we all have a dragon. Some of us were born in the year of the dragon, which was last year, and depending on when you're watching this, 2024. I'm not going to tell you what year I'm born, but you can figure it out. And this is the year of the little dragon or the snake.
Mhm.
So the dragon has energy, fire, passion. Um, but it also, if you're not careful, that dragon can be the dragon of doubt. Who are you to write this thing? People are going to criticize you. So the dragon can turn around and bite you. Um, or you can go, hello, dragon. I hear you. And I'm going to take that energy of the dragon and I'm going to ask my friends for help. And I'm going to pick. That's a combination of pick and book. I'm going to book when this uh, book is going to come to life. By that, I mean, I'm going to book the room, I'm going to book the launch. So some people are easily internally motivated. I need external motivation. So I do have to book the room, book the cake, and know when I'm going live so that I stop futzing and stop doubting and then hit press send. So yes, those are some of the systems and structures that I use and social systems to stay accountable so that my soul's work is going to come into the world.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, I wanted to mention, you mentioned the dragon, and earlier you mentioned how many that it took hours to write some of those verses. And I remember, I'm sure all of us remember some of those meetings when you were going, I don't know how I'm going to get through this verse. But what I would want that made me think of the dragon because you ran into that. That was your dragon, and you kept pushing through. You moved through that with all the tools that you just mentioned, with the community, with Purple Space, with us, with your friends around you. But I guess I just wanted to really acknowledge that because it is a process and it takes time. And here you are with this finished, awesome book. So
Yes. I
Thank you.
think it's a cute, small book, but it's very powerful and impactful. I
yeah,
think that's the most important thing. And then as you talk about the process of shipping this book, and then I also want to mention that this is actually not your first book, and you actually still experienced all that. Well, tell us more about you. What kind of like did a brief introduction about you? Well, would you like to talk about other books you have, you know, uh, prepared for other people to explore?
Um, this is the art of tooting your own horn without blowing it. And I am grateful to Seth, who I met a long time ago in terms of his writing. And I also met and had the honor of working with Richard Bowles of What Colors Your Parachute. These are two genius men who both changed their field profoundly. Richard Bowles, his book was the best-selling career book of all time. He was also one of the fathers of modern career planning. He wrote guidebooks. So he influenced me to write guidebooks, helpful, practical books. And so I wrote Word Glue, which will be available again, Find Your Million Dollar Brand Name. And that's won a bunch of awards, which blew me away. But it didn't start looking like this. It started being called Namefluence, Find Your Million Dollar find your business name, and now it's word glue, find your million dollar brand name. So sorry, this will be re-released shortly. This was a custom printed book. It's beautifully bound, happy paper, locally made. Um, and I didn't want to distribute it through Amazon because I don't like the way Amazon treats its employees. Um, and so I can't release it that way anymore. But anyway, I've written other books. The Carbon Almanac was a project. I wrote a book on taglines, which my clients have used. I've got another book coming out in June called Carry the Flame. It's a collaborative project about Outward Bound's Canadian Outward Bound Wilderness School. And in that book, I wrote about a program I helped develop called Women of Courage for Survivors of Violence. Really proud of that profound work, and that work also profoundly changed me. So writing is a tool that I use to tell stories, to create guidebooks that can help others.
That is really beautiful because I think, behind the scenes stories um, are always very touching, actually, because you have done so many different books, and then it seems that the genres are very different, especially this one. But in a way, it's also connected, and also the people, they have impacted you and influenced you. And so for the writers or creators out there, they're also working on their own projects. What would you like to share with them that you have learned in all your projects? Because it seems like it doesn't matter if you're the first time writer or you're the 10th time writer. It seems like you still go through certain kind of emotions. And of course, the godmother can come to help. The great book can come to help you. But what are your tips, or something you have learned that you feel like is very important for people to know?
We're living through a very interesting time, and things are changing at a rapid, rapid rate. They're calling it exponential change. And we're seeing, as I said, incredible loss of species. We're seeing numerous wars being fought. We're seeing struggles on a state and global level. So the antidote to all that chaos, I think, is creativity. And if you use a tool called Values in Action Character Strength, so viacharacter.org, you can do that tool for free and find out what your top values are. If you somehow bring your top 5 values to life on a daily basis, you're going to be happier. So that might mean that you're creative. And if that is, great. As I said, get into community, um, find the person who's ahead of you. So Richard Bowles wrote guidebooks, Seth wrote books. I've learned from both of them. I worked for both of them. Find your hero, send them a letter, see them live if you can. There's a whole bunch of things that if you get quiet, you know in your heart already that you want to do. And when you decide to move towards significance as opposed to success, it's great that these books have won awards. But when I run into the mayor who gave my book to a young person who was unemployed, and I hear back from that young person that just reading the book even made them feel calmer, like that's better than anything. That's that lets me know that I have used my skills for good. There's two words that I think about: vocation, voca, there's voice in it, um, and enthusiasm. Enthusiasm comes from the Latin entheos, Theos, and that's the God in us. Now, you might not believe in God, but you might believe in the sheer majesty of a moonlit night and a shooting star. Whatever your thing is, your spark is as unique as your thumbprint, is as unique as your iris, is as unique as your voice. And if you don't bring that thing to the world is duller and dimmer and possibly dumber. So you're going to feel better about the world if you have a capacity to take your inspiration and your insight and to add a little bit of positive influence.
That is great. So I'm curious, Louise, what is next for you? I know you mentioned the next project that you're working on, Carry the Flame. Is that your next project then, or is there
That
more down
project
the
is
road?
done. I wrote an article about what I learned working with survivors of violence and how to lead programs that were empowering in an outdoor setting. Outward Bound is a global movement of schools. It's been around for a long time, but this is the first 7-day program for survivors of violence. And it was amazing. It was just so incredible to see these women make positive choices and go rock climbing and paddling and sleeping in a tent and cooking their own food and just being embodied, finding their strength. There was one woman who went rock climbing who'd been hung over a balcony by her partner. So for her to face the fear and reclaim her body step by step as she rock climbed was like humbling and honoring and profound to witness. So I've seen the capacity for people to change. I've seen the impact of trauma, which is why I wrote First Aid for Fairies. My next project, I don't want to talk about it too much because we know from research that if you talk about your goals too much, the psyche can feel like you're already done. And you can lose your energy. But what I've done is I have spoken with veterans about, because of First Aid for Fairies, a friend of mine who's a veteran wife of a veteran, that sounds funny, veteran wife. We got talking about resources for military personnel transitioning to civilian life. So I've done a couple of letters that have gone to Fred Smith, who is a diplomat embedded with the Australian Defence Force in Afghanistan, and particularly when Kabul fell, the airport in Kabul. Most of us will remember that atrocity. And so he is an author, he's a playwright, he's a musician, he's a diplomat, like he's a star, right? Each one of us, when we use our talents for good, we become a star because we blow through the resistance to let our light shine in whatever our capacity or skill is. So I'm partnering with him to see whether or not there's a role for me. There might not be a role for me. The idea that I have might be something that they take on, and that's fine. So I'm not sure where that's going to go, but I started the conversation, and I'm really again, I'm really humbled and um, deeply moved when I get these letters back from people who hire veterans, from veterans and veteran wives, and the president of, in Australia, it's called the RSL, the Retired Service League, the Hawthorne Retired Service League. So just like there were so many amazing good people behind the Carbon Almanac and First Aid for Fairies, when you do good, the goodness starts popping up all around you. And that's magic, right? That's the magic that I love. So I'm just going to flip through the book so that the people can see just how gorgeous it is. I know the lighting's not, I did my best to do good lighting, but I want to honor Felice, who did this work. There's one of the veterans, and partly some of these tools came from the veterans of the Vietnam War. So, I'm very grateful to our service personnel for what they gave and what we've learned as a result. There's a physiological sigh, and look at her, she's just gorgeous.
Beautiful.
So yeah, it's what's next is the thread throughout my life is projects that make a difference. And my heart will tell me what I need to do next. That's completely not strategic, I know, but that's just how I'm wired.
I think that's great.
Yep. And well, we probably want to know where we can find a first aid for fairies from rain to rainbows. Tanya?
I would
Uh,
love if you,
oh,
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 sorry.
I was going to say, I was going to say it's available on Amazon, and that's for anyone around the world. And I'm not sure how many bookstores you're in yet, but maybe you plan to
It's
be.
pretty much everywhere, and you can ask your
Okay.
bookstore, your library to order it. So it's on all the platforms that the librarians and the bookstore owners like. So it is available. And what I really hope is that people will talk about it because we know youth mental health is at an all-time low, and it's been made with and for them using a co-design approach. So here's help getting it there.
That's wonderful. Well, and where can your readers connect with you online?
They
Like,
can
where can they connect?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me. LinkedIn/Louise, Louise, like it says, Karch. So you can connect with me there. I have wordglue.co. That site's a little quiet right now and it has to be updated because of the new release coming up. And you can also email me. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not there that much. And I will be on Insta one day soon. But maybe LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the best way to get me. And if you want me to come do a virtual reading to your book group or your school, or if you want me to come to your school or come to your business, I'm happy to share these tips because they're science-based tips that make a difference in the moment.
Fabulous. We'll include all that in the show notes. And also in the meantime, like you said, grab or gift a copy of First Aid for Fairies from Rain to Rainbows. It's right here for you to read or read with somebody you love or you feel somebody needs it, or for a teacher or for a school or your community. That is just a really wonderful. So thank you, Louise. We're really looking forward to your next project. And I am Amanda.
I'm Tanya.
And this is Purple Ship, and where we meet remarkable people who ship remarkable things. And we will see you next time. Thank you,
Thank
Louise.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Ship, ship, ship.
Yes.